Okay. Today, for my persuasive speech, I would like to talk on a pretty common subject that persuasive speeches are usually done on, and that topic is smoking. I'd like to discuss what it does to your body, physically and internally, what it actually does, and how it can actually affect you physically on the outside. Like I said, this is a really big topic. It's a really big addiction in the U.S., I'd like to say today. A lot of people do it. I'd like to first start off with let's start off with where and what age it begins at. First off, it does start off with the age usually between the teen years, from ages of 14 to 18. Mostly the reason why people start smoking when they're younger is because of basically peer pressure. People pressure them to be, well, it's cool if you smoke this, it's cool if you smoke, it'll make you fit in with us. I don't really think that's a good reason to smoke, but it is one of the main reasons why people start when they're young. Also, what they don't realize is when you start smoking when you're young is you become addicted when you're older. You become addicted when you're younger, but it leads to an addiction when you get older. Think how many people that you know, and I know a lot of people, who sit there and say, I can't get through today without a cigarette or several cigarettes, and they have to have breaks every hour or 2 hours or 20 minutes. So it is a big addiction in the U.S. today, and it does start when you are in your adolescent years. So like I said, it does start a habit when you get older. I don't see why smoking makes you cool. I've heard that it's easier to actually not start than it is to start and stop. I've heard that from a lot of people who tell me you don't just smoke, don't even try, don't even start, because then it just brings trouble later on in life. When people tell you that you need to smoke to fit into their group, I think that that's not a good reason. I think that you need to find someone who accepts you for you, not because you shouldn't inconvenience yourself to please someone else. So here's a thought that I thought of while I was doing this speech, and I thought about it. When you smoke, you're bringing in an extensive amount of nicotine, where your body doesn't actually need nicotine, such as it needs water, food, air, things like that. So what you're actually doing is you're poisoning your body, which can cause many physical disruptions, and it can cause health issues. Basically what your body does, it does go into defense mode when it has poison in it. Studies have shown that over a long period of time, smoking can cause a higher risk of heart disease, stroke, and even cancer. Different kinds of cancers are the most common. Cancers from smoking are throat cancer and lung cancer. In the U.S., 1 out of every 5 deaths is from smoking. Another reason smoking is not appealing, you get yellow teeth and you get wrinkles. I've seen it many times, and it's not appealing. Why would you want to do that? It can also cause a loss in bone density, which causes you to get osteoporosis when you're older. Obviously, you don't probably care about that now, but when you get older, you'll probably look back and say, yeah, I should have done that. There are so many more cons than there are pros to smoking, and like I said throughout this speech, it's just not cool. You shouldn't have to change yourself for somebody else, and try not to give in to pressure just because it'll make you cool, or you think somehow it will actually relieve stress. There are many other different ways to relieve stress than smoking and picking up an addiction. Also, think about it this way too. Smoking can cause so many health issues for the rest of your life. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, people want to live healthy and they want to live long lives. So it's just better not to smoke. Just don't do it. I understand that peer pressure can be extremely difficult to handle, but I think one should be strong in their own beliefs and in themselves, and just understand that they need to be who they are and not trying to impress somebody. Smoking can be a serious problem. It leads to, has a lot of negative issues. I'd like to discuss what happens inside your body when you smoke. Well, let's start off with talking about your lungs and the air you breathe in and out. So when you breathe in, you have the air goes through your nasal cavity, down through your trachea, and into your lungs. Now, when the air goes in your lungs, at the end of your bronchioles, there are these little sacs of alveolar. And in a normal lung, let's start in the alveolar. This is where the oxygen that you breathe and the carbon dioxide that you let out, this is where the exchange is from the blood to the air or the air to the blood. So now what happens in a normal lung with a person that does not smoke, your alveolar has many different folds, so it has a lot of surface area, but it's all like shriveled up, which leaves a lot more room for gas exchange, oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. Now what happens when you smoke is your alveolar loses all those folds and begins to get more and more surface area, but it begins to straighten out, which means that there's not as much room as there used to be for transportation of carbon dioxide and oxygen, which also leads to why people feel like they can't breathe. It can lead to like a stroke if you if you can't breathe. Obviously your body's going to shut down and you're not going to get oxygen to your brain. So that can lead to a stroke and health problems and heart problems. So, but I wanted to talk about that. It's a little more of a physiology way to talk about it, what actually happens inside your body. So like I've said throughout this speech, just when you have the peer pressure, just try to be strong in who you are. Don't give in just because somebody says that it's cool to do that. It's not cool. Be yourself. Don't be who people want you to be. Be what you think is right. You don't have to give in to peer pressure. So the next time someone offers you a cigarette and you know that you don't want to do it and you don't want to get that addiction and have all these health problems, just, remember that yourself. Think of who you are and who you want to be and say, I'm not going to smoke and I'm not going to make that decision to do so.